plot exposure cutscene, so it's an obvious choice for speedruns. Even with story skip on, there are still many cutscenes left, so this video will fast forward through them as much as possible. This brand new updated pass by Ringrush was created with this video in mind. Right off the bat, DK goes through the wall and out of the training grounds. This skips the training barrels, 4 minigames that not only teach the player how to use a few game mechanics, but actually enable them for the Kongs as well. So by skipping them, the Kongs can't dive underwater, use orange grenades, pick up barrels and boulders, or use any vines. DK went through the wall using a trick called phase walking, and here's how it works. The variable used to store Kong's facing angle can range from 0 to 65,535, but the game represents one full rotation is 4,096 units. So, theoretically, the facing angle can get well beyond 360 degrees. When angles exceed that value, there's a safeguard in place and the game subtracts the full rotation. Because of this correction, most functions were not designed to deal with angles beyond 360 degrees, so if the facing angle is more than about 450 degrees, the collision detection in the camera incorrectly used the opposite angle for some of their calculations. As a result, walls which are normally only solid from the inside out become only solid from the outside in. This zone where collision detection breaks is called the phase angle. One way to make a Kong enter the phase angle is to exit the first person view. Due to a bug in the camera function when leaving first person, the game adds one full rotation to the Kong's facing angle if it's below 180 degrees. This results in a zone about 90 degrees wide where wall collisions become broken. During most actions, the facing angle is updated on every frame, so it should be impossible to maintain a phase angle for long enough to go through walls without the angle being updated and therefore corrected, but there are a few exceptions that make it possible. First, if a Kong is swimming or crouching, the facing angle is only updated if the joystick is held in any direction. As long as the stick is left in a neutral position, the angle will stay above 360 degrees. If a Kong is falling, the facing angle won't be updated. And finally, the angle is not updated on the frame of a change in the movement action. So, on the frame a Kong starts walking, decelerating, or standing still, the angle will be preserved, and only on the second frame will it start changing and be corrected. This means that by alternating between the direction and the neutral position, DK alternates between walking and decelerating on every frame, and the facing angle will never be corrected. This allows DK to maintain the phase angle and walk through the wall, since the collision detection is incorrectly taking the opposite angle. Swimming underwater is faster than staying on the surface, but because the dive training barrel was never completed, DK can't dive by pressing Z. But when he jumps in the water, DK's momentum briefly carries him below the surface. Because exiting first person view while underwater automatically starts the underwater swim animation, by going in and out of first person during that short dip below the surface, DK can start swimming underwater even without learning to dive. This is just another phase walk to reach the loading zone normally only accessible by shrinking Tiny Kong. At this point, you might be thinking that DK can just walk through any wall at will. Well, yes, that's kinda true, but remember that the phase angle only spans about 90 degrees, so phase walking can only work within that angle range. DK needs the banana camera to take fairy pictures, which unlock features in the game's mystery menu. 2 of these features are part of the key elements that make this speedrun possible, and unlocking them requires 6 fairy pictures in total. The details of this will be made clear later. This is called a moonkick, and the way it works is actually pretty simple. Gravity usually subtracts 20 vertical speed per frame, but many moves, such as DK's aerial attack, change that value. DK's aerial attack sets the vertical acceleration to 1/8 of its default value for 8 frames, or negative 2.5 per frame instead of negative 20. By interrupting the attack within these first 8 frames with a kick, the lower acceleration of the aerial attack is applied to the kick. Since kicks don't update vertical acceleration, DK is subject to 1/8 of the usual gravity for the entire duration of the kick. Moon kicks can only be done in a place where the aerial attack can be interrupted early. For DK to hit the ground shortly after rising from the aerial attack, there needs to be a steep slope, a higher ledge, or a low ceiling. Finally, while cutscenes typically stop Kongs in their tracks, kicking is an exception. DK can kick into a cutscene trigger, and although the player loses control, DK will keep his momentum for the duration of the kick. This is called a void warp. By clipping out of bounds and walking out, DK hits the void out trigger, a zone around the outside of the map that signals the player has somehow wandered out of bounds. As a failsafe, the game treats it like a death and respawns the player at the start of the level. In DK Isles, this warps DK back here, which saves time compared to exiting normally. Okay, there's a lot to unpack here. I know you've just witnessed Invisible DK teleporting up to Frantic Factory's lobby entrance, but first we need to explain this trick. This is called Tag Barrel Storage. Here's how tag barrels normally work. It seems like tag barrels send you to a dark map, but the effect is actually generated on the spot where a tag barrel is used. When a Kong enters the barrel, the game locks the camera in place, turns everything black, and loads all 5 Kongs in a spotlight. Meanwhile, the Kong that entered the barrel is still there, but invisible and frozen in place. When a Kong is tagged, the new Kong will replace the previous one, and then be unfrozen and made visible after a short delay. However, if the Kong changes state after the tag barrel is activated, this will override the frozen state, allowing control of the Kong with the tag barrel active. This can be done with any of these 24 actions, all of which can trigger at least one frame after controls are frozen. These include taking damage, uncrouching, entering a rank, canceling Hunky Chunky, landing in water, diving, starting the long fall animation, and many more. Here, DK performs a skid jump. This is done by quickly reversing the control stick direction, which causes DK to skid, and by jumping on the same frame he starts skidding. DK gains the height of the jump, but still acts like he's skidding on the ground. From this state, he can jump again or crouch. Tag Barrel Storage is activated with the uncrouch action, and DK keeps moving while the tag barrel is active. During that time, DK moves towards Frantic Factory's lobby. When Z is pressed and DK is tagged, he's now far enough away from the tag barrel that it's now unloaded, which interrupts the tagging sequence before its completion. So DK stays invisible, and an attribute called his stored position is modified. But to define the stored position and explain why this change is useful, we first need to back up a bit and clear up a few things. An actor is a type of object that includes most of the interactive stuff in the game, like Kongs and every other character.
That Drexu was actually way too good.
Actors
What
have
the hell?
bones which are used to animate them more easily. A Kong's stored position is the position of one of these bones, which typically follows their real position pretty closely. For example, DK stores his position in the same place where he stores his bananas. Right after a tag barrel is used, the Kong is unloaded and there are no bones to animate. So, the stored position is set to its default value, 0 in all coordinates, until the tagging process is complete and the new Kong needs to be animated again.
Oh god.
By tagging outside of the barrel's range, the tag process is interrupted by the barrel unloading, so DK stays invisible and the stored position stays at 0, 0, 0. So why does the stored position matter? A few movement mechanics such as climbing trees or pulling up from ledges rely on it for their calculations. When DK pulls himself up on a ledge, the difference between his current and his stored position is added to his vertical position. Under normal circumstances, the stored position is slightly higher than the current position, so this operation moves DK down by a few units. But when the current vertical position is 571 and the stored position is at 0, DK doubles his distance away from the seafloor, warping significantly upwards. In order for this to bring him all the way up to Frantic Factory's lobby entrance, DK needs to grab this ledge, which he reaches with the moonkick using the edge of the island to interrupt the aerial attack.
30 seconds ahead.
How did he manage to
How the
pass
fuck
closed door
is this
of the
even
lobby?
possible?
Well, simply because it's not solid. The second level's boss key does a few things. It raises this platform, which makes the whole middle area of Kremile accessible. It opens this door, and it opens the door to the fourth level, Gloomy Galleon. Before the key is turned in, the closed door of Frantic Factory's lobby is supposed to be inaccessible, and the very confident developers at Rare didn't bother to make it solid at all. Banana Locker wants you to collect 15 golden bananas before entering Frantic Factory, but the portal is right behind him and only needs to be touched to be activated. B-Locker has a pretty large hitbox to prevent you from entering the level without clearing him first. He still does a laughably bad job at it though, but the common ways to get past him don't work in Frantic Factory's lobby because this pipe blocks the way to his explodable right side. Luckily, the pipe on the left gives an alternative. Like I said earlier, most walls in this game are only solid from one side. This helps getting back to normal play in case a player somehow ends up out of bounds. By phase walking into the pipe and then jumping backwards into B-Locker, the wall's outer hitbox ends up pushing DK away, ejecting him into B-Locker's hitbox
Yeah,
far enough
that
DK
one
can
is actually
simply
pretty
pass
bad.
through. The camera and the pipe make this hard to see, but there's going to be another instance of this trick later on.
It's not a really good course, but anyway. I continue, because why not?
I mentioned
I mean,
earlier
I know
that
why
cutscenes
not.
typically
It's because
stop
I'm
Kongs in
just
their tracks.
fucking
Long
30
jumping
seconds
the last
ahead.
possible frame before losing control can override this momentum stop, which lets DK move during this cutscene.
Not good.
Wait, somehow DK is now out of bounds. What happened? When the camera switched to show Chunky, the game took a bit of extra time to load the next frame. Lag is common in DK64, sometimes a little too much. To make it less obvious that the game is lagging, the developers used a clever trick. The horizontal displacement of a Kong between each frame is determined not only by the Kong's speed, but also by the time between each frame. So the laggier it is, the more the Kong will move in between each frame, which keeps the real-time speed more or less consistent.
No.
When something happens that makes the game slow down considerably, such as loading another room or dealing with visual effects like smoke or large amounts of particles, the time between one frame and the next will be abnormally large. This causes DK to move so much
So
between
here,
the two frames
basically,
that he's in
I
front of
just
the wall
tried
in this
to
frame and
use
beyond
as
it in the
much
next. This is known as a lag clip. It's
things
usually
as
done
possible,
using orange
as
grenade
much
explosions
items
to generate a big
for
lag
not
spike, but in this case,
getting
loading
hit by
storage
the other
room is
enemies.
sufficient.
But anyway. Oh, fucking mines. Holy fuck. Donkey Kong moaning. That's pretty hard.
As DK is navigating out of bounds, now is a good time to bring up out of bounds ground properties. The height of the ground below the Kong is updated as they move around, but when out of bounds, there is no ground below. This means the height of the ground is never updated, so it stays at whatever height the last piece of ground under the Kong was. Effectively, the ground extends at this height infinitely as long as no other ground is passed over. Because this ground is above him, DK can roll under it and remain out of bounds.
Wait, what?
Here's the first of 6 fairies. Pausing and exiting the level right after taking the picture skips this cutscene, which saves about 8 seconds. The banana fairy normally refills ammo during the cutscene. Skipping it means no refill, but the fairy picture is still saved, which is all that matters here.
No, asshole. Why do you do this to me? Why do you tractor beam me?
DK climbs up using a combination of skid jumps and moonkicks, both of which we've already talked about. Because he jumps and skids at the same time, DK is in the air but acts like he's skidding on the ground, so that's why he can double jump. The wall here is poorly made, probably because it's not really supposed to be accessed. The steep slope here helps get more height from the moonkick, which is just enough to reach all the way up to the mouth, where the
46,
Hideout lobby
that's
entrance is.
way too
From there,
good.
DK uses more skid jumps to climb a little higher through the mouth to load the second fairy. We saw earlier how DK can crouch from a skid jump.
No,
He can
no,
use
don't.
this to take out the
Don't.
camera in
Oh
midair
my god.
and take the picture as
Why?
he's falling in the loading zone to skip the cutscene.
Why?
Again, because in a skid jump, DK is considered to be on the ground. He can perform ground actions like a roll. He can pass through the wall because angled walls, even if only
None
slight,
of them
have
hit
much
him.
weaker collision
Like,
detection.
what?
He narrowly avoids hitting the instant death lava with an aerial attack and reaches the back of the loading zone to enter Hideout Helm, the final level in the game. In Hideout Helm, a timer is ticking. You need to shut down the Blastomatic, K-Rool's weapon to destroy DK Isles, within that time limit to open the door that leads to the door that leads to the door to the level's key. But the key is always sitting at the back of the level, so there's a faster way to get there.
Oh, someone died. It's not cool.
This slope is slippery. Normally, only Lanky's Orangstand move can climb it, but using skid jumps and precise movement, it's possible to get up anyway. Usually, jumping from a slippery slope will send you backwards in such a way that climbing is impossible, but for a few frames, it's possible to walk on it before sliding off. DK uses this and the wall to angle the skid jump as far up as he can. When landing on the slippery slope while gaining height from the aerial attack, DK enters a slipping state in midair for a short time. It's possible to jump out of this state without the backwards momentum slippery slopes usually give, and that's just enough to reach the top. The second slope is actually not slippery except the top corners. The slope is also steep enough that DK can land just after initiating the aerial attack, which allows him to moonkick. The wall here is similar to the lobby's wall, since it's slightly angled as well. From here, DK can simply navigate out of bounds directly to the key, but there's an issue. He's way too low.
Damn, donkey.
Here, there's a small section of higher ground that's accessible from out of bounds. By passing over it, the effective out of bounds ground is raised up to its height. The out of bounds ground is raised again, twice this time, which now gives enough height to be able to access the key.
That one was terrible. That was a terrible lap.
So why come here? Well, the goal of the game is to free Calum Z by opening all 8 blocks on the stage. To access
No,
a level,
oh my
you
god,
usually
no
need
way.
the key from the previous level, so if you get the final key, you should have every other key in the game. So, to spawn the final boss, instead of checking for every key,
it's
the game
so
simply
rad.
needs to check for key 8, with one exception. Since the second level still
let's go
unlocks both
and do
Frantic
some regular.
Factory and Gloomy Galleon, Frantic Factory's key unlocks nothing. The developers did think about that one, so the game also checks for key 3. But as long as you give
Got
keys 3 and 8 to Calumzi, that's enough to make the final fight appear. On top of that, 2 fairies are conveniently placed right here, bringing the total up to 4. Then the game is saved and reset. This quickly returns to the main menu, which is useful for the next step. Here, Ring Rush goes into the mystery menu. The first option, which is unlocked with 2 fairies, is to rewatch the game's plot progression moments. The intro story cutscene is activated. This 5-minute sequence that normally plays when starting a new file with story skip disabled goes through 7 different cutscenes in various maps.
Oh
To
god.
keep track of when it's time to change maps and continue the sequence in a new cutscene, the game has a timer ticking along with a few key points in time where the game should fade out and load the next cutscene. However, because this is the mystery menu, the player can always return to the menu at the press of a button. When an active mystery menu cutscene is cancelled, its corresponding fade-out timer is also stopped. But the timer starts 6 frames before the intro story is considered to be active, so if it's cancelled within this 6-frame window,
is this a
the
goal?
game goes back
What?
to the menu without interrupting
That was
the
terrible.
timer. This causes the music to stop functioning properly, often playing the wrong music or nothing at all. More importantly, it causes the game to attempt to fade out into the next section of the intro story at these key moments. And most importantly, this is the basis of a game-breaking glitch that will unfold in the next 5 minutes of the run. From here, the goal is to get as much done as possible within that time and within the new restrictions that the intro story timer poses. Keep an eye on this reference of the intro story to see when the key moments line up with the run as we go through it.
Oh my god, why did I went there? And how was that almost a new lap record? Like, wow. Oh wait, that was mine. That was mine. If that makes sense.
Earlier, I said that swimming was one animation that preserved the phase angle as long as the joystick was left neutral. This is why DK can go straight through the wall after leaving first person. Similarly to Out of Bounds Ground, the current water level is extended infinitely as long as DK doesn't go into
Bruh.
another body of water.
Bro, the
This lets him swim in
momentum.
midair. This control room is used in a cutscene that plays upon opening the crown door near the end of Hydael's Helm, where K-Rool panics and goes into his airship preparing an escape. DK Isle is pretty hollow and this is a very small room, so the developers saved some time and space by simply hiding that small room right in the middle of the island. With how easy clipping through walls is in this game though, it's not that well hidden after all. After that, DK enters a Jungle Japes lobby from the back,
No!
thanks to walls only being solid from one side.
Why?
Well, it turns out that
He
there
pulled
was no
me
reason
right
to
at
do
the
this one
end. I
other
could
than
have
to
got
go
a cool
The intro story timer is about
a
to hit
lap
the first
record.
fade
But anyway,
out. When that happens,
I
if
don't
a cutscene
care,
is currently
it's okay.
playing, the screen will fade out and transition into the second part of the intro story, loading the necessary map and cutscene.
got him.
If no cutscene is playing, the fade out will be put on standby and will trigger immediately whenever any cutscene plays. Going back to the intro story is bad because the player loses control and has to watch the rest of the intro. There's a way around this. When
Oh.
a fade out is initiated, two
Okay,
variables are set, the next map number and the cutscene number. At the end of the fade out, the game looks at the next map number to find which map to load and the cutscene number to find which cutscene to play in that map. If during the fade out another transition occurs,
That was
the
moves.
next map number
That's
was
fucking
replaced by
butter.
the new destination. So the instruction by the intro story timer to initiate a fade out is completed and the sequence carries on, waiting for the next key point. However, the fade out is cancelled and instead of loading the next part of the intro story, it loads the new destination. As long as the new map index is written to the variable in the
That was
1
way
second
too
window
good.
between the moment where it is set by the intro story fade out and the moment where it's used to determine which map to load next, the fade out cancel happens. Keep in mind though, for a fade out to be initiated in the first place, the cutscene needs to be currently playing. Most loading zones do not qualify as a cutscene, but thankfully, level portals and Troffenskopf portals do play a cutscene when a Kong enters them, so they will initiate a fade out. If no time had been killed, then DK entered Jungle Japes before the intro story.
No, you asshole.
This would have
Okay, it's fine.
The Jungle Japes introduction cutscene would have started playing, but it would have been promptly interrupted by the intro story fade out. Therefore, entering the portal has to be done in a 1 second window, right at this moment in the intro story. As you can see, one of the main goals for this section of the run is to prevent the game from returning to the intro story, which is done by cancelling the fade outs at these key moments with a well-timed transition. Finally, B-Locker was skipped here as well. Like I said earlier, level portals only need to be touched to be activated. DK's hitbox and his center of rotation are offset by a small amount. His hitbox is slightly front heavy. By pushing his
No,
back
oh,
against an
goddamn.
obstacle and
Okay,
then
it's
turning 180
fine.
degrees, DK is able to position himself closer to that obstacle than by simply running at it. This is what's done here. DK kicks into a precise spot while facing backwards, then turns to face the level portal while standing much closer than his hitbox normally allows him to be. Then, because this slap extends his hitbox way forward, his hand reaches into the portal, activating it. For most levels, this trick is pretty easy to pull off, but in Jungle Japes lobby, it's almost impossible.
Oh, that was a dick move. Got him. I hope I won't have that much karma for now, please. And that's a new record. Oh my god, the prank was just too
We're
good.
greeted with this weird cutscene at the start of the level. This is because although the next map number was overwritten by the new destination, the cutscene number wasn't. So, instead of playing cutscene 1 in this intro story map, it played cutscene 1
missile.
in
That's
Jungle
not
Japes,
even
which
another
happens
bomb.
to be this one.
I'm disappointed,
This trick is
game.
very similar to the
No, oh
bush
goddamn.
The bush is a
Here it
solid
is.
object
Here
that
is the
pushes
karma.
outwards. It
Here
pushes
is the
DK
fucking
backwards
karma,
far enough
dude.
that he passes through the hitbox of the wall. Pay attention to the void outside. This path
God
allows
damn it.
DK to skip this section of Jungle Japes entirely, going straight into the main area from the start. In a few seconds, this run's 5th fairy picture will be taken. Taking a fairy picture triggers an ammo refill cutscene, which could initiate an unwanted fade out into the intro story. So the picture needs to be taken at a point where there's no fade out on standby, as there will be no way to cancel one during the ammo refill. But as you can see, a fade out is coming up, so DK makes a
No,
quick
no.
detour to the 12th and 12th
Please.
This plant is solid and has a slightly slanted
Stop bullying me! Oh my god, okay, it's fine.
and the slope to initiate a movement. Notice how the vines leading to the 12th and stuff portal are not there. That's because the training barrel for vine swinging was never completed.
Bruh.
Again, a weird cutscene plays because this is cutscene 1 in the intro story version of Hideout Hell. Nothing is needed in this room right now, but coming here both cancelled the intro story fade out and cleared the first visit
Got
cutscene.
him.
Like I said before, DK
He
is
got
also
me.
required to beat the game, so DK will visit Troffenskopf later in the run.
Fucking mines. Oh my god. Okay. I'm crying. Turbo. Oh, it's fine. Bitch. That was okay. News. In this one, at least one people get stuck in there. So let's hope there is
There
more
isn't
this
much to
time.
say about this clip other than it's one more example of a poorly made wall hitbox. Here, DK does his kid jump to take out the camera in midair while positioning himself above the water. While taking a fairy picture, Kongs
Oh
enter
God,
a state where
no.
he can't be controlled
hit
until
me,
the end of the
please.
refill cutscene. By taking the fairy picture while falling into the water,
No!
splashes down after
No,
the
he got me. God.
This changes
Dang
the
it.
state from taking a picture to swimming, where he can be controlled, saving about 8 seconds over waiting out the refill. During that time, DK initiates another phase walk to go back out of bounds. This is to take a better line to this friendly boss
No!
and skip this gate.
That's
He
the
also
karma.
performs the same trick behind
That's the
box
dude!
by
Stop!
changing animations
Can you
right as
stop
he enters
bullying
the
me?
box, allowing him to move a bit earlier. The gate is
No!
on one side, as is the case
No!
with all the bamboo gates across
What?
the gate.
What
If
is
you
this
pay
game
attention to the
doing?
intro story timer, you can see that a new fade out is approaching. Some time needs to be killed to line things up perfectly, so this showcase of absurd looking movement is used to fill that gap. This is typical for tool assisted speedruns. Whenever there's any amount of waiting that needs to be done, casters try to make it as entertaining as possible. Incredibly enough, using Rambi here is actually required for this speedrun route to work out, which adds yet another normally optional element of the game to the list of requirements to beat it in the fastest way possible. The reason why will be made clear soon. This is also why 5 colored bananas are required in this run. This bunch is automatically collected when entering the Rambi box. Another bunch was collected here, but that one can easily be avoided with no time loss. Visiting Cranky here has 2 purposes. First, because talking with Cranky is a cutscene that can lead into a transition, it's used as the last of the 3 intro story fade-out cancels in this run. Second, because the first visit to Cranky, which normally happens in the training grounds, is the trigger to spawn the training barrels. It turns out that one of the 4 moves the training barrels teach
Someone
is
died.
required to beat
That's
the
pretty
game,
not
barrel
hard.
throwing, which is used in Lanky's phase in the final fight. Therefore, spawning the barrels is mandatory, and doing it here is the most convenient. One last weird cutscene plays, this time cutscene 3, and there's nothing more to do in Jungle Japes.
Nice new record.
At this
Obviously,
point, there's one
that
more
was
fairy
awful,
required for the
but
main quest behind this run, and that
New
one
record
training
is new
barrel.
record. Looks like I'm just awful. No! Oh my god. Oh, it's fine. I mean, I think
Wait,
it
so
is.
why go into the training grounds only to get right back out? Does this have to do with the intro story timer? No. In fact, this is because talking with Frankie sets a flag that indicates that the training barrels are spawned, but only a temporary flag. A temporary flag is not preserved after leaving the game file and returning to it, which, spoiler alert, is something that's going to come up soon. By angling the camera towards the training barrels, the game loads them even though they're behind the cave wall. When the training barrels are loaded, the temporary flag is replaced with a permanent flag. From this point on, the fact that the 4 training barrels are spawned is saved in the file, so it will be preserved even after leaving the game and returning later. The most observant viewers may have noticed that the gate is gone and this switch is pressed, even though we never pressed it. The reason is a fascinating example of developers going out of their way to be consistent even when it doesn't actually matter, which, considering just about everything else in this game, is a bit shocking. There are two ways to free a Kong in this game. The first is by opening their cage, which is the intended way, and the second is by entering Attack Barrel while controlling them, which can be done using King Cutout or the final battle. When a Kong is unlocked through the second method, their cage will automatically be opened. It turns out that this is true for all 5 Kongs, including DK. At the start of the game, all 5 Kongs are caged. DK simply happens to be trapped inside of his own home. By opening this gate, DK freezes.
How are some people
If
still
the gate
there?
is skipped instead, DK will go out into the world while the
This
game
game is
still
broken.
considers him as being locked up. Using glitches, it is possible to switch to another Kong without ever entering Attack Barrel or opening the training grounds gate. When entering Attack Barrel as another Kong, DK will be gone and replaced with a yellow question mark. When the other Kong goes into the training grounds and pounds the switch, which, despite having DK's face on it, can be pressed by any Kong, DK will then be freed at once. So, long story short, Attack Barrel was entered way back at the start of the run to perform Tag Barrel storage, so that's when DK was
Exit,
freed
exit.
and why this game
Yes!
is already open.
Ultra. Yeah, that's the last one of the entire game. Maybe I can do. Yeah, that's really likely. I would like to get a 37 point
This is the
something.
last
It would be
feature of
cool,
the run.
but
Instead of a reset, this
who
time
knows?
Quit Game is used to preserve the state of the intro story. With 6 fairies now, the second option of the mystery menu is unlocked. Also, the intro story is about to end. This is when the magic happens.
oh, dude, legend. Here we go. Finally here, performing for you. If you know the world you join into. This monkey rap, huh? He's the
Somehow,
leader of the
DK is
bunch.
back in his house. What just happened? As you can see by the comparison, this is the end
Kick
of the
some
intro story.
tail.
The final fade out was not cancelled, and it was initiated using one of the main menu's background cutscenes, which play after spending about 12 seconds on the screen.
Donkey
The reason why
Kong.
the game doesn't return to the mystery menu here is the same as why the timer wasn't stopped a few minutes
No,
ago.
you asshole,
It's because the intro
please!
story mode is not active, since
Ah,
the cutscene
good.
was cancelled before that flag was set. Donkey Kong 64 has 15 different game modes,
So
including the adventure
dumb.
mode, a few sequences, snide
Anyway,
mystery menu minigames,
Liberty,
couple of
come
modes,
on.
and the main menu mode. The game normally switches between these states as you select options in the menu. However,
Please!
directly from the main
Don't
menu to the
bully me.
adventure
Stop-
without
stop
going through the
bullying
file
me,
select,
please,
the process
game.
of changing game modes is skipped. Since
No.
main menu mode is designed for the main menu and not for normal play, functions
Oh,
are
I'm crying.
such as saving, pausing, and even taking damage. If you want to know how the game knew to select the correct file,
Come on,
even though there was no
get
file
out.
selection, you can pause now for a quick explanation.
No!
But here, the
Come
real
on!
question is why? Why do all this? Why this 5-minute masquerade of unfitting music, fade-out cancels, fairy pictures, Rambi craze, and mystery menu shenanigans? The answer is moves. Beating King K. Rool requires these special moves: Peanut Pop Guns, Trombone Tremor,
Ooh, got him.
Punky Chunky, and Primate Punch. To unlock these moves, you need to talk to Cranky, Candy, or Funky as the appropriate Kong and pay some coins, but unlocking Kongs and buying moves takes a long time. This is where the mystery menu comes in.
No
Each of the
shit,
mystery menu
bro.
minigames defines a number of upgrades that the player has access to at the time. This is mostly used for the boss fights, because they are
Oh,
recreated
someone
to
died.
simulate what a
Not
casual
cool.
player would have access to at the end of each level. Usually, this means having every move and upgrade up to the level whose boss you're currently fighting. So if you decide to fight the Fungi Forest boss in the mystery menu, the game temporarily gives you all of these moves, as if you had been playing the game normally up to this point. For some reason, the same applies for all 4 minigames, including Rambi Arena, even though it doesn't actually impact anything. Of all the mystery menu minigames, Rambi Arena is the fastest to unlock because it requires only 6 fairies and entering 1 Rambi box. Rambi Arena happens to enable all of these moves, which include everything needed to win the final fight, except for Diddy's gun. Thankfully, the demo was there to save the day. The demo cycles through 5 sequences, 1 for each Kong in order, every time it's loaded. Additionally, like the mystery menu, it also temporarily grants whichever moves are appropriate for each sequence. After the reset at the end of
it's second
Hollow
to
Hell,
last.
DK's demo played. Then, because the game was exited through the menu and not by resetting, Diddy's demo played, which gives Diddy his gun. Rambi Arena doesn't update any of the flags pertaining to guns, so Diddy's gun stays unlocked. To avoid having those free upgrades leak into the main game, when any adventure file is viewed,
Come
all the flags related to
good
upgrades
shit,
are changed
bro.
to match that file's saved data. In this case, though,
Legend.
this crucial step is skipped by the intro story fade out. So all the moves temporarily unlocked for demos and minigames make their way into the main game. And this is why the Banana Camera, the Shockwave, 6 Fairies, the Rambi Box, and its Banana Bunch are all necessary parts of this run. Training barrel moves are not included in Rambi Arena. This one is required for Lanky's phase, so it has to be completed.
Well done.
This is a void warp, except this time it happens as the game sets the flag for having completed the training barrel. To get the warp to work, DK has to hit the void out zone during the transition out of the barrel, which disables all input. It can still be done by kicking or rolling before the transition
How did I
begins,
miss the
letting
fucking
DK's
boost
momentum
panel?
carry him into the void out zone.
Like
In
how?
most circumstances, this warp brings you back to DK's treehouse and saves about 4 seconds. But here,
okay.
because the DKL's first time cutscene was already watched, the new spawn point is outside of the training grounds,
Come
which
on.
saves an additional 10 seconds.
No, you fucking dipshit. I hate you so much. I'm going to eat your mom.
DK needs to go back to Frantic Factory.
I'm going to fucking kill
This couldn't be
myself,
done in the first
boys.
visit because the fight requires Simeon Slam, which DK didn't have before using Rambi Arena to unlock more moves.
Come on, get out of my way.
Here, DK cancels fall damage by landing on a slippery slope. The sliding state takes priority over splatting from fall damage, which saves a couple of seconds. DK also somehow activates the warp pad even though it's way down there. This happens because the Kong leaving a platform doesn't enter a falling state until the next frame. So for one frame, the Kong is still considered to be on the ground, except the ground is now whatever surface is below them. If that happens to be a banana Pokemon, it will be
No, please.
Even though the door isn't open, the loading zone that leads to the boss is always behind it. Because it extends infinitely under the door, it's possible to enter the boss fight from way down there. The face walk is used to clip out of bounds because it's the fastest method, but there are many other ways to skip colored bananas. The intro cutscene of this boss is lengthy, so it's faster to exit the fight and re-enter. When entering for the second
No,
time,
don't
a
you
much shorter
fucking
cutscene
dare.
is used, saving around 40 seconds. However, because main menu mode prevents pausing, DK has to void out and travel all the way back.
Fuck yes. Fucking hell. Ah. Hey. Epic.
As you can see, this is still barely faster than watching the cutscene.
There. Beautiful. Ah,
This fight is
fucking
normally
hell.
done with Tiny and her
The
ponytail
clutch.
but DK
The
can still do
clutch.
it
Can you
using
see
kicks,
the
jumps, and
clutch?
moonkicks. One thing to note is that the switches that appear
Bro,
on the
even
screen
when I
are
compare
not completely
against
random.
the sum of
When
best,
Matchup
it's
starts before
better.
coming out of the
I'm a
box, the game
fucking
determines
legend.
which pillar is a valid place where the switch can spawn. It rules out the pillar
Oh,
Matchup
for
is
fuck's
jumping
sake,
to,
dude.
the pillar the card is
Nice.
closest to, as well as all